Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. Today we're going to turn a large ash bowl. Uh, and along the way I'm going to show you the tools I use, the techniques I use, and we'll talk a little bit about ash. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we mount this. Now a lot of people like to mount a bowl between centers in order that they can balance the grain. It's something I generally don't feel comfortable with. So I'm going to use a faceplate ring, but you can use a face a faceplate works just great. But I really prefer a faceplate ring, and I'll have a link above to a video I did on faceplates and faceplate rings. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to my friend Darryl Jones, who's working in local woodcraft as a manufacturer's rep doing a demonstration, and was able to come by and we had a good shop visit. And I want to thank him for this beautiful ash block that I used in this video. He's got his own channel. He hasn't made too many videos here just recently because he's been moving from Florida to Spartanburg, South Carolina, but he's going to be cranking them up soon, and I'll have a link to his YouTube channel in the show notes. This bowl blanket, 13 inches, is too large for a typical woodworm screw, so I would not use a woodworm screw for anything this large. So first thing we do, we go ahead and mount it, and then we're always going to turn the blank to make sure it's not going to bump. I think it's fairly well balanced, but we don't want to go faster than, maybe 500 at the outset. I'm going to go ahead and true it up. Not a necessary step, but one for a bowl like this I think is not a bad idea. And I'm using a 1/2 inch of bowl gouge, trying to, make it run a little more true. I'm standing here, I'm riding this on my hip and I'm pushing it forward. Another option is to do it this way and do a pull cut, but then you're standing in line of fire. And for the roughing, I don't do that. I kind of switch to a left-handed cut. Not quite riding the bevel. Pressing down firmly on the tool rest. Okay, I've got it round. So now I'm going to switch the banjo. You're always going to turn this every time you move the adjust tool rest to make sure it's not going to bump. Very, very important. Because of the forces of this and uneven, I'm going to turn some air. I'm going to start with a 5/8 inch bowl gouge. Roll it over maybe somewhere facing maybe 10 o'clock. We'll start with the corners. Bowl's anchored at my hip at almost a 45-degree angle upward, and twist it over to almost a 45-degree angle. Again, close, not quite. And now that I've got the corners off, I'm going to stop the lathe, make an adjustment, and get my tool rest closer because I can. Again, this is a what I'd call a pull cut, anchored on my right hip. I'm going to come in here and start evening this out a little bit. Flute facing almost 9 o'clock. Now if I brought the flute up too far like this, I'm going to get too much cut on it. If I did this, it's going to, bend over. So I'm going to cut in line just to the right of the tip, which is supported by the center of the tool on the tool rest. Okay, getting a nice clean cut. Not really getting any tear outs, looking good. Got a little bit further to go. Before I go much further, I'm going to go ahead and mark the tenon for the large set of bowl jaws that I'm going to be using, the strongest jaws that I've got. And they're going to be those jaws will be just about 1/3 of the diameter. I'm going to use this template I've got here to make sure that I've got a good size. This is going to be a once-turn bowl. just because I want to get on with it. The bowl is fairly dry, being ash. Ash doesn't contain, it tends to be a little bit drier than a lot of species of wood. Typically, it's about 35% moisture content, whereas many others are well in excess of 50%. We're going to come straight in, so we're going to be doing side grain, not in grain. I'm going to start out here a little bit and work my way in. Now the jaws that I'm using are dovetail. I'm coming across making a very flat surface for those jaws, and I can't cut that dovetail easily with this. And because it is, I don't use a dovetail. Well, I've got to go in a little further. There's not much room here, so because it was an uneven blank. So let me take it down a little bit more. Now, like I was mentioning, I can't easily get a dovetail tenon with a large bowl gouge like this. I'll go ahead and flatten this off. So I'm going to switch to a different tool. I'm going to use my trusty 3/8 inch detail gouge, which has a lot of steel because it has a very shallow flute, and with this I can easily make that dovetail. Drop the handle so I can get a nice entry cut slicing in. And I think that looks good, and I'll just take a little bit of a sweep here. I want this flat area here perfectly flat or slightly dished, and I can look at it and tell I've got to go just a little bit more in here because I want the strength comes from the bowl jaws being flat against this wall here. And that ought to do it. And then I'm just going to nip the corner here, just slightly chamfer the corner because that doesn't really add any strength. And if for whatever reason this bowl would come off of the chuck, there's a better chance that I would be able to rechuck it by not tearing off the corner here. Okay, now I can start working a little bit more on the profile. I can get the speed up a little bit, but with a bowl this large, I'm not going to turn faster than 800. But it ought to run very true here, and now I could just really start deciding where the base is going to be, or rather the foot. And the foot's going to be just a little bit larger than this, maybe. So I'm thinking the foot will be something like that. So that's where I'm going to start my profile. Now, I had my tailstock support primarily as a safety measure, but now that I don't need it anymore, or that I've got this thing running true, I'm going to get it out of the way so I can have a better access to a curve here. So let me rearrange the tool rest. Give me a kind of a compromise support all the way around so I can pick up the cut back here and swing that handle all the way around, trying to maintain one fluid cut. Now switch to a 40/40 gouge. I'm getting some rumbling and I'm not sure why. This is a 1/2 inch gouge, so I felt like I could get a better cut. But I think I'm getting some flexing. No, maybe not. Let me just get this area trimmed off here. Well, I've got some ripples there. I'm picking up some kind of rumbling, and I can't tell what it's from. I may wind up having to use a negative rake scraper there. Okay, I did get an interrupted cut right here. I got to deal with that. I want to think about what it is I want to, how I want to shape the rim. But I've got some cracks here that I think I showed y'all earlier, or I'll show you now. I'll talk about these cracks. I've got a crack right here that goes to there. I don't like cracks on the rim of the bowl. They're never a good thing. They're not artistic. Cracks down in here don't affect the structural integrity, but cracks up on the rim tend to. I think what I want to do is bring this face down just a little bit now in order that I can decide what kind of rim treatment I might want to have through here with a little design. So I'm going to go ahead and come in from the other direction, from the back side, and flatten it a little bit and see, again, turn it. And I'm going to switch to the 5/8 inch to do that and see what I can come up with. I'm just going to go straight in just a little ways till at least I get it flat. Now I could come in sideways like this, but I'd be facing in grain all the way across, so this is an easier cut to flatten it. Okay, now let's examine the edge. See if I've got it cut all the way around so it's flat. I do. I've got a tiny little crack here. To get rid of that crack, I've got to come down. I've got to come down to there, and frankly, I think I would prefer to do that and have a shallower bowl than to have to deal with that crack. Trying to fill it, have an imperfection, it's not going to look good. That when the bowl dries and moves, as it likely will with a once turned bowl, that it's liable to open up again. So I'm going to go ahead and plan on taking that down. And I'll do that when I reverse this. So all I'm going to do now is just mark where the top edge of the bowl will be, and then that will give me what I need to know in terms of any rim treatment on the side here that I want to put. So I think I want to put something maybe right in here to maybe there, a little band here. And I think what I'm going to do is put a bead on each side. I hope I don't regret having this ink on it. I'm going to make a scalloped band with a bead on each side. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make that scallop cut. I'm going to drop the handle. I'm going to engage this side, just bring it around a little bit and do that. Let's drop the tool rest a little bit. And hope I don't get too much tear out with this. Just engage here on the side. And just bring it around a little bit. Enough to get rid of that, hopefully that ink. I think what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to go ahead and try to get in the corner with this. I'm going to point it in here like this. And just slowly bring it around till I get a nice clean. Bring it across that corner a little bit. We're going to try to do the same thing on this side. That looks good. That looks good. The only thing I got to be concerned about, because it comes in, it's going to affect my wall thickness, so I'm going to have to be careful with that when I come in with it. Got some tool marks here I need to get rid of. I'm going to do that with that shear scraper. I'm going to go ahead and go back and put a burr on it. So I'm just going to get rid of these nervous tool marks here. They probably sand out fairly well. And I don't have many of them. It's just really right in here. But I think I'll give it a try with this fresh burr. And if not, I'll sand them out. Drop the handle. Got to figure out where that burr's cutting. Very light pressure because I'm just getting the tops of these marks. And feeling it with your hands is better than looking at it. I've still got just a little bit of area right here. Bring the tool rest around a little bit more. Try one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and power sand. I want to cut my lathe speed to at least about a third of what I was doing before. So somewhere maybe 250, 300. Using a 3-inch disc and just, again, doing the turner's dance. Okay, so I've removed it from the face, from the chuck. Now I'm going to take the screws out of the faceplate ring. Go ahead and remove that. Now, I'm going to open this up. And then instead of having the grain go straight up and down, I'm going to cock it about 45 degrees. And that way I get uniform pressure in all directions with all 4 jaws. So I've got it nice and snug. I'm going to turn around, tighten up one more time. I probably need to retighten it occasionally when I turn it because it is green wood and it could be moving. But I've got it a nice fitting against the face. I could not get a slice of paper down there, I don't think. Nope. So that shows you I've got a good fitting. Now in big bolts like this, I like to drill a depth hole. Is it necessary? No, of course not. But it's an obvious. Let me raise tool rest just a little bit. But it definitely makes it a little bit, reduces your risk of having too shallow a bowl. So I'm just cutting a little tiny little divot to help center that that drill on. And I'm using a 1/4-inch drill. I've got this little rod on it to give me something to hold on to. And then I'm just going to slide this down a little bit. But I need to decide how deep, so I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to come over the top, and I'm going to just use this little rubber donut I've got here to think about how deep. That'll give me a pretty rough idea. Give myself just a margin of safety there at the bottom. I've seen people do this with a 3/8 inch. Very aggressive, very hard to hold onto. A 1/4 inch, as far as I'm concerned, is plenty big, because all it is just a depth hold to mark the center. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and face this off because I've got an uneven surface here. I'm going to do that with that 5/8 inch and just bring it back like this. I forgot, I don't want it flat. I need to reduce it back to this line here, so I've got a lot more cutting to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, I've got it taken down and got a series of rings that make it real easy for me to brace this with my finger and get a nice entry cut, start hauling. You can see I'm just taking a series of cuts about a 3/4 inch deep. Okay, now I'm going to evaluate that rim. I want a fairly wide rim, I think, and then I'm going to undercut it. So I've got to, you know, square this rim up. And I'm just going to come in from each side very carefully. And then I've got to decide whether I want to put any other decoration on it. I've still got a couple of tool marks. And I want to make sure those cracks on each end are completely removed, and they are. Okay, this just slightly. Okay. So now I'm going to start back again at the middle. I'm going to switch to a bigger gouge. Come back to a 5/8. Just a lot less flex on a large bowl like this. Now, because this is a green bowl and could be drying, although it's not real wet, but it is green, I've got to go ahead and get this wall thickness right, or I'm going to have a problem with the possibility of it flexing. So I'm going to go ahead and start coming in here and start tracking that thickness all the way down. I'm going to brace my finger, come in with the bevel at 90 degrees. Now I'm thinking I want this bowl about a 1/2 inch, so I've got to undercut it quite a bit. And use my calipers. Oh yeah, that's just about where I want it. It's looking good. Think how deep that is there. Okay, I still need to go thinner quite a bit. I need to get rid of more here in the middle. I'll go back to that 5/8. At least an inch. To do my final cleanup, I'm going to shift to a very large negative rake scraper. Not aggressive, just removing tool marks. Now we're gonna remove the nub on the bottom, the tenon on the bottom. I put a big old block of wood just rounded. It roughly meets the profile of the inside of the board, of the bowl. And then I'm going to put some shelf mat in the bottom. Hold it in there, get it roughly centered. Bring up the cone center, or bring up whatever center you got. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but I like the cone center for this because it allows me to get real close up. And it's running very true. I'm happy with that. We're going to get our tool rest in nice and close. And then we're just going to start taking this wood down with a bowl gouge. I'm going to use my 3/4 inch, or I'm going to use my 1/2 inch. So we're just going to come straight in and nibble away that wood. I normally use a vacuum chuck, but I just want to show you how to do this when you don't have a vacuum chuck. Just kind of make you a triangular cone. You want to slightly concave the bottom so it'll sit nice and flat. I'm going to go ahead and sand this off before I put a few decorative beads on the bottom. And I'm just using the sanding the sanding pads by hand and go through each of the grits. I'm just going to come in straight in and make a couple of V grooves, and like this. And I'm going to use this negative rake box scraper. I think I can just drop it down a little bit, raise the tool rest. And I like that. I think that's a slight subtle improvement. Come back and again sand down in there. Come in here. Actually, I can do better by switching to a 3/8 inch detail gouge that I used for doing that dovetail. So you can see I got a little nub with less than 1/4 inch thickness there. So now I can go ahead and take this out. I'm just going to turn this upside down on the lathe bed, and I'm going to shear it off this direction. The grain is running this way, and I'm just going to take a tool handle and give it a nice sharp wrap. And there we go. And then all I've got to do is take a little chisel to chisel that out and sand it flat. Just a little bit of power sanding with a 120 grit, and then you can go through the other grits by hand. Here's some shots of the finished bowl, actually without any finish on it. If you like this, you might want to watch my complete playlist on turning bowl. Click above. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.